Good.
Okay. I will call the meeting to order and begin with the land acknowledgement statement. On Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Would someone move that we adopt the agenda? Lorraine, and a seconder? Jenny, thank you. Any, I should have asked if there were any additions to the agenda. No. Okay. All in favor of adopting the agenda as it is then? Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, which was on February the 6th. And again, would someone move that we adopt the minutes? Jenny moves, and a seconder? Right, can you second that? Yeah. Thank you. All in favor of adopting those minutes? All right, passed. Thank you. A disclosure of monetary interest, anyone? No? Let's move on then to the priority issues. The first one is the Confederation Bridge, and I welcome Director McMunn back to meet with us again on this subject, and I guess I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, members of the Municipal Heritage Committee and esteemed colleagues. Yeah, so we're here today. I have Ramin Rameshni from TSI Incorporated. TSI has been brought on board from the town to help facilitate the redesign and the replacement of the Confederation Bridge. So we've been working together on this project for some time now. And today we're here to talk about the Heritage Commemorative Strategy for the Confederation Bridge. We know the bridge is going to be, or the bridge as we know it today, as it sits there right now, will be removed. There'll be new abutments installed, and a new bridge of some design will be incorporated in to facilitate a river crossing. We know it's going to be a pedestrian crossing. It will not be a vehicular crossing. So we felt it prudent to discuss with the MHC on how do we best commemorate the bridge that is still currently there and that's been used ever since it was installed back in the early 1900s. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Can I just verify, are you saying that you want suggestions on how we commemorate the old bridge, the one we're taking down?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have an idea.
Oh, the arrows?
Are they called plaques? What are those things?
Okay, so the presentation outline is we've had a request from the MHC to meet, so hence why we're here today. The heritage, we want to discuss the heritage commemorative strategies and what this group is thinking, how best to commemorate the old bridge, and then final recommendations. We don't expect that there'll be any final recommendations come out of today's meeting, but we want to get the juices flowing and get this group starting to think about how best to commemorate the bridge, whether it be some type of a plaque feature, and we'll get to that a little bit throughout the slides here, but a plaque feature on within the approaches to the new structure, or are we going to try to salvage some of the structural elements of the original bridge and try to incorporate that into some type of a commemorative feature adjacent to the bridge itself, or the new bridge. And then we'll have some time at the end for questions and answers, but feel free to interrupt me as I go through these slides. And I should mention that the MHC members were invited to a site meeting a number of weeks ago. I want to say maybe a month or so ago now. I know it was a cold day. We met out on site, and we did get access to the bridge, and we were able to walk out on the cantilevered sidewalk adjacent to the bridge and to the dam, just to get out there and get a bit of a bird's eye view for those of you perhaps that, it's been some time since the bridge has been in service, so I just kind of brought that to the forefront because we're out on the structure and able to actually look at it and feel and see it and see if there's anything out there that we want to be able to salvage as the project proceeds. And I believe, Jenny, you were in attendance, and Madam Chair, you were in attendance as well.
And Klaus.
And Claus was there?
Yes, he was
Yeah.
there.
And Carl was in attendance, and yeah.
And Mary.
And Mary, of course. So as we know, that's a downstream view of the old structure. No surprise there. So we're going to talk a little bit about the heritage commemorative strategies. So in order to commemorate the old structure, we have to look at recognition of a place, a person, or event through the erection of a plaque or monument. We may also provide valuable insight into aspects of local history. So what that bridge means for Smith Falls, how it functioned for the town of Smith Falls historically, and then given that these markers typically indicate some level of heritage recognition.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question? So you are talking about pedestals?
Yes.
Because when you say plaque, I don't see it the same thing.
Yeah, let's not get hung up on plaque or anything like that at this point. We're going to look at a bunch of different options, things that myself and Ramin have come up with. I live in Brockville, and we'll get to this in a second. I mean, a number of the storyboards, we'll call them, are dispersed throughout Brockville. I believe there's about 54 of them, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked at their heritage site there last week. And they're there to commemorate things like the former Phillips Cable facility that's on King Street West, down in the west end of town, across the road from St. Lawrence Park. So it talks about, and it's got a picture, an aerial view of Phillips Cable back in the day. Now that building has now been demolished, and the site's been purchased by Upper Canada District School Board, and there's a new school being built as we speak. Across the road, St. Lawrence Park, there's a number of different plaques and pedestal-mounted storyboards throughout there to speak of how the park came to be, and coincidentally, it was donated by Phillips Cables from way back in the day. Get my fingers to work here, we'd be doing really well. So again, these are some storyboard plaques, is how I'll call them. I'll refer to them throughout the in Smith Falls. So the one on the right is commemorating the Beckwith Street Bridge historically. I guess that's probably just two different views of one a little closer, one a little farther out. And then these are more kind of indicative of what we would refer to as a quote unquote plaque, whether it be on a stone monument of some kind or affixed to, in our particular case, affixed to maybe perhaps, the approach of the new bridge or something of that case. So again, I guess the important thing here to note is, regardless of the shape and or form of the commemorative feature, whether it be a plaque, a storyboard, or what have you, that the context is no different from one to the other. We're still trying to get the same message across. We're still trying to pull in those commemorative elements of the history of the structure and perhaps the surrounding area and what it means and meant to the town of Smith Falls residents. Here's another one in Brockville, referencing the history of the Brock Trail. For those of you that have visited Brockville, the Brock Trail is a great local feature in Brockville. I walk it every day with my dogs, and there's a number of these storyboard plaques throughout the Brock Trail, particularly down along the waterfront and out on Blockhouse Island, which would be south of City Hall. I'm not sure where these are from, Ramin, if you recall, from here. Okay. The one in the picture there, that's commemorating, I'm not familiar with it, I haven't seen it myself, but that's, does anybody have a reference for that?
Lock.
The lock, okay.
Wasn't that the wood mill in the background?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right.
So something like that could be done. Obviously, that's commemorating the lock, but you know, if we were looking at perhaps salvaging some of the structural elements of the old structure, we could do something. We could do a what's the word I'm looking for? Some type of a sculpture or something like that. Put it together, but I don't know if that's appropriate or not. But that's why we're here talking with you folks. You're the experts, so. Again, these are just examples. We're not married to any of them. It's just for purposes of the presentation, just to see what we could do, or we could deviate from this completely and do something completely different. This is a plaque. Says this fence is made from railings from Grace and Morgan Street Bridge from circa 1880 to 2008. Oberlin Heritage Center volunteers. If you can't read it, I'm not sure if you can. It's hard for me to read. Donated many hours to salvage, repair, and install them, all for your enjoyment. So presumably that fence and or railing was rehabilitated and repurposed into a commemorative feature. Again, this would be, you know, some type of commemorative feature that would be under glass, which would prohibit, I guess, maybe people from tampering with it and whatnot. Anything more to add on that one, Ramin? Am I on point with that?
Essentially, we're just trying to give various ideas.
Okay. And last but not least, this is again a structure that's down at Queen's University in Kingston. Not sure what it's commemorating, or it's obviously pulling a bunch of different elements into something that is real that we can look at and we can see. But what is that demonstrating, Ramin? Sure.
So essentially what we're trying to show here is different ideas that we can incorporate in order to commemorate the existing bridge. So essentially it could be anything from a plaque or storyboard, and it's just like showing a picture and just a few lines, or we can enhance it by salvaging a piece of the existing bridge and then try to come up with an idea whether this is going to be sculpture or just the same. For example, something that comes to my mind is a piece of the truss detail, the truss connection detail, salvage it and then protect it under some sort of protection exhibit like this. So, or in this example, the way that they did it, they used the material and incorporated into the design of one of the elements of the new bridge. In this case, they used the steel and incorporate that into the construction of the fence of the new bridge. So again, we're just presenting different ideas, different places of the world. At the end of the day, this is your city, your idea, and we will try to incorporate that into the final design.
Thank you. So, MHC recommendations. So, like I said, we're here today. We kind of heard from the group at our last meeting that, and we did discuss about commemoration of the Confederation Bridge. So we're here today to, again, not to necessarily get a recommendation here today, but to get people thinking about it, talking about it, getting that dialogue moving ahead. I was talking with Ramin there earlier today, and we're approaching the time where we need to look at removal of the structure in anticipation of a new structure, hopefully being installed in 2024. My plan is to have another report go in front of Committee of the Whole on March 25th with a couple of, for a discussion with committee members, council on the new structure and what that means for the town. So the working group has previously met. Councillor McGuire sits on that working group. So we met last week, late last week, brought the group together, had a discussion, And the next step will be to present those findings and the working group's opinion of how we move this file forward on the 25th of March. So we felt it incumbent on ourselves to, come to MHC, have the discussion about commemoration of the bridge. We know the old bridge is going to be removed. Regardless of what the new structure looks like, that is a given. We know the old structure is going to be removed and we want to commemorate it. So we don't want to lose sight of that. We want to keep the foot on the gas, if it were, and keep thinking about that and starting to get some traction on how we commemorate it. We don't want to be looking at that at the 11th hour. We don't want to miss an opportunity. So with that, I'm happy to quit talking. If you have any questions for myself or Ramin, feel free. Through the chair, of course.
Go ahead.
Not question, just my thoughts.
Mhm.
Is that what you want from us tonight? Our thoughts and opinions?
Sure.
We've been working on this bridge for 14 years. It's been an article in our town that's been just allowed to disappear out of neglect, which should never have happened. But the time that we've closed it, and I think if I'm right, in my time on council, it's been closed as a walking bridge or any kind of bridge for maybe 10 years. It's a long time. At any rate, as a result, our town have embraced walking along the concrete path right at the waterway. And you see people there all the time. That's what I use. I go for my walk every day and I come along there and I go all along the water. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think we need to replace the bridge. I think that people are already coping really well, enjoying that area and none of these bridges that we looked at would ever come close to being what that bridge was to any of us, in my opinion. And having a pedestal there with the picture of the bridge at its heyday and a description of it, and that's all that we need there. And like something like that there would change that whole character of the park. That's a historic park.
Right.
And we're going to talk about taking the water treatment plant building down. So what's left? If you're asking my opinion on that whole area, it's a heritage park. It's a beautiful part of our town. And I'm hoping we're going to talk more about making sure that whatever is replacing that building is historic looking and not modernistic like the bridge that we were shown that the council wanted. That's
right. Yeah. So if I could speak to the, how the local community has adapted, I guess, in the absence of there being a vehicular or pedestrian crossing that's been active. I mean, understandably, it's been closed since about 2015, I believe, or when it was taken out of service. So as we know, we've done an active transportation plan as well that looks at the town and looks at our network of roads and where we have opportunity to incorporate cycling infrastructure throughout town and whatnot, and better pedestrian mobility throughout town and make it easier for people to get around. So it was identified in the active transportation plan that be a primary corridor through Confederation Drive, crossing the bridge to get access into the adjacent park. So that's why we're looking at the pedestrian bridge. Sorry, I don't want to simply quote it as a pedestrian bridge. It functions as a pedestrian bridge, but it's more of an active transportation bridge, absent cars and vehicles. So that's, it's a purpose-built bridge for pedestrians, cyclists, people with, assistive devices or other modes of non-motorized travel. So it's important to note that because I know how people have adapted and they've started to make their way up along the waterfront and they go along the concrete walkway that's adjacent to the canal where the boats tie off. We've already talked to Parks Canada about that, and they're not in favor of that being, a permanent feature where we're going to try to direct people to get into the park via that walkway adjacent to the canal. For the simple reason, it's a place where boats moor, right? Particularly transient boaters come in there and they moor. It's really not conducive to inject a whole lot of additional pedestrian traffic and or cyclists into that area. That's primarily why we're looking at replacement of the bridge. Parks Canada wasn't in favor of it, and the town isn't particularly in favor of it either, not having some form of structure there to get people from one side to the other. So it has been looked at, it's been discussed with Parks Canada, and that's what we came up with. So long story short, council does have an appetite to replace this structure with a pedestrian bridge. So I think we're quite a ways down the rabbit hole on that at this point. The decision will have to be made in terms of what the structure looks like at the end of the day, and that will be my report on the 25th of March. So again, if we can, if the group's amenable to it, you know, if we can get thinking about how to commemorate the bridge, you know, I'll obviously it'll be something that'll have to be taken back to council for endorsement. But again, we don't want to miss that opportunity. I'm not a heritage expert. That's pretty obvious, I guess. But you folks are. You have the context. You have the information that you can pull from. We got the museum. We got the Heritage House. We got the library. I'm not sure you guys know where you can pull all that historical information as well. So there's an opportunity here to do something really cool. What that looks like at the end of the day has yet to be determined, but we're sure you guys will do a great job of coming up with something. So.
Jenny?
Just for me personally, I love the idea of incorporating part of the structure into whatever we decide to do, whether you're using like one of the trusses as a base for the pedestal or something. I love that idea. I think it's worth thinking ahead and saving what we can to try to incorporate it later.
Right, through the chair. We're also looking at, I know council's got an appetite for a lookout on the structure as well. So that's something that we're going to take into consideration and try to incorporate into the new structure. So why I bring that up, that might be a really, really good opportunity to have some type of commemorative feature, whether it be some of those elements of the structural components of the bridge out within that lookout. They wouldn't be structural, they'd simply be there just, you know, for viewing. They wouldn't be carrying any load or anything like that, but it would be a good place for folks to come in, you know, become aware of the history of the bridge if they're not from town, and for those that are in town to go out there and reflect a little bit on whatever it is they're dealing with in the day and think about what the bridge used to be and what its purpose was in Smiths Falls. So. But again, if that's something of interest to this group, that would be good information that we would like to hear back. Because again, my sense is that we have something at the approaches for the bridge, but maybe that's not the right idea. Maybe we look at something out on that viewing platform. That obviously isn't going to obscure people's view, because that's the whole reason of having the viewing platform in the first place, so you can look downstream of the waterway. And I can see it in my mind. I think it's going to be a really, really beautiful feature. The bridge itself will be a great opportunity to view the river, but if we can incorporate the viewing platform, I think that'll be a added bonus for sure.
Chris, do you want to comment?
Sure, thanks, Dorothy. Excuse me. Yeah, I really like the idea of what's coming together here. I think the size is going to be a challenge, but I like Jenny's idea of trying to recycle something or reuse something. One thing, if there is a pedestal or a plaque or whatever the communication medium is for it, I think that it'd be cool. I don't think Confederation Bridge was the first crossing there, so it'd be neat to incorporate whatever the original, I think it was a timber structure, Confederation Bridge, and really show the evolution of the site since the town has been here. So, but no, I think it's good to have this conversation early, and we can keep thinking about it and come up with something good.
Yeah, through the chair, one thing I'll note is that what we do know is the structural steel elements of the bridge as it sits there today is covered with lead paint. So that's a designated substance. So whatever we contemplate to salvage will have to be, you know, those particular elements will have to be remediated. We'll have to get the paint stripped and that kind of stuff. I'm not suggesting that, you know, I'm worried about the cost. The cost is what it is, but I'm just saying that, you know, we'll have to be diligent on that. So we'll need to know what elements we want to save so we can properly get them remediated, get that paint stripped, and get them resurfaced and incorporated into whatever feature we put in. So,
If you're going to have a side, you know, step out where people can look at, You could have 3 panels there. You could have the original wooden bridge. You could have the bridge that's being removed now. And you could certainly do that. And then you wouldn't need to have a pedestal, but so one or the other perhaps. If there isn't a lookout, pedestal's important, but if there is a lookout, it could go there. And I could imagine some of the elements that might be saved might be better used in a lookout than just the stand for a pedestal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my expectation of this meeting here today, again, is to get the juices flowing, get you folks, to get a dialogue going in and amongst your group. And then, sooner than later, if you could bring back to the town through myself a bit of a proposal or ideas. We don't need you to draw anything on paper, but maybe you see a reference somewhere else in another community that we really like that, and whatever it is, I'm sure we can replicate. So, yeah.
Okay. For questions or comments, Carl?
Just through you, Madam Chair, and to you, Paul, I'm just thinking about timelines. So the next regular meeting of Municipal Heritage Committee is the first Tuesday of April. I know you're planning to present to Council on the 25th. Is that, if we were to come back with something like that, and certainly I can take this away with staff and with the committee and have a chat with the chair and just sort of map out an approach and perhaps a deliverable. If the committee were to present and provide that feedback on, say, that in the first half of April, would that work with your timelines?
It would. Yes.
Okay, so I'll look for the committee's direction then on how you want to proceed.
I'm confused on, are we talking about putting a push out or a lookout on one of these proposed bridges? Or what's the proposal of the bridge supposed to be like? Because I don't see any of them that I think have a historic look.
Well, again, I'm trying not to focus today so much on what the bridge is going to look like at the end of the day. That's not the purpose of this meeting here this afternoon. The purpose of this meeting this afternoon is we know the old bridge is going to get removed. What the bridge is going to look like, what's decided on at the end of the day, and this will be a council decision, has yet to be seen, right? We've got a couple of ideas. Council's going to deliberate on that on the 25th of March. Maybe we don't have a resolution on the 25th of March. Maybe we need to come back to council post that meeting with some more information. But at the end of the day, we know that the old bridge is going out. We want to commemorate it in some way, shape, or form, right? So we're going to do our best to try to incorporate a lookout. So I would say for this group, put pen to paper, start thinking about it, get some photos, get some ideas of perhaps maybe a couple of different options. One being if the bridge is going to have a lookout feature, that this is what we would like to incorporate into that lookout feature for commemoration. Absent a lookout feature, do we want to revert back to, the pedestal monuments on, the storyboard idea on either approach to the bridge and go at it that way, or something different? Doesn't have to be a storyboard, could be some other type of commemorative feature. I'm not sure what that is, but so one of two options, right? The lookout option and then no lookout option. Because it's a little bit up in the air yet whether we think that a lookout can be incorporated, but we're not 100% sure until we get farther down the road of design, detailed design, and we're not going to go down the road of detailed design until we get some further direction from council in terms of what bridge they want to select.
If I may.
Yep.
So, through Madam Chair, what I want to say is that as the designer, what we need from you guys at this point, because the timeline for the removal of superstructure could be critical. So maybe the main direction that we need from you is whether any parts of the bridge should be conceptually salvaged for the purpose of commemorating the old bridge. And then I would like to mention that the final design could be massaged later on. We can come up with a design. It could be a combination of both of them. For example, just hypothetically, just think that the pedestal idea, the storyboard with the pedestal itself could be made of some parts of the bridge. So just keep the options open for you. But at this point, what we need to know if we should salvage any parts of the existing bridge, the superstructure. Again, keep in mind that many of the parts of the original bridge 1904 has already been replaced in 1986. So we need to go back and try to find the original if the intent is to commemorate the heritage significance of the bridge. And then as it was mentioned today here, there is more history to the bridge than the 1904 construction. Do we have any records of the 1868, or that's about the time, the original construction? Do we want to include that into that storyboard plaque or whatever it is? So those are the details that I think we would like the committee to start thinking about that and give us an idea, because the final design, that's something that we can easily work on that later on. We want to see what's needed to be done right now.
Thanks, Ruben. Okay, I think that gives pretty clear, like our expectation in terms of direction, or the ask of this group. We're not the experts on heritage commemorations, so we're looking to this group to give us some direction. And I can't stress enough that we don't want to miss the opportunity. At the end of the day, myself and Ramin have to look at how we're going to facilitate removal of the structure. And we'd like to get some direction back from this group in terms of what we're salvaging, if anything. We'll need to know that sooner than later.
Yes, well, I think some committee members have already commented that it's a good idea to salvage some. So it's up to you to decide which parts are salvageable or are the right time period.
Yeah, but I guess in order to determine what we're salvaging, we need to know, is it a mount for a storyboard or two mounts for a storyboard? Is it something else out on a lookout feature that, and again, I don't know what that looks like. And maybe in all cases, maybe there are storyboards. Maybe that's all we're doing is storyboards similar to what we saw in the slides earlier. Or do we want to, just put maybe it's both. Maybe we have the commemorative storyboards, and maybe we have a plaque on either end with the date that the new structure went in, and then a little bit of history on what it was historically used for. I don't know, but that's, we would look for your expertise on that. Thanks, Greg.
So I guess just a question of clarification. I guess there's a couple of different, scales of commemoration. One is that is the pedestal or a storyboard or some sort of gateway feature, something just as a standalone item. But then there's also, and certainly in just directing the research for the committee, and I guess I'll pose this question more generally. If we're looking at, say, restoring or salvaging a larger amount of the trust to potentially go into the design of the new structure, and rather than just as a commemorative piece, but as something that actually is incorporated into the fundamental design of the new structure, is that something that's of interest either to the committee or feasible for the design of the ultimate bridge?
Yeah, through the chair, I think I'm not the structural engineer, but I certainly have some reservations if we're talking about incorporating some of the existing elements into the new bridge. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ramin, but they could not be structural elements supporting any of the load. They would be just superficial there to look at. Yeah.
Chris has a comment.
The more we have this conversation, and I'm thinking about it, when we know there's the lead paint on the structure, what are our limitations of what would even be salvageable? Like, is it a matter of taking it and is it possible to get the lead paint removed from it and reuse it into some kind of feature, or because I feel like that's where a lot of this conversation centered on, and if that's not even an option, we need to know that, and then we can.
What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that the paint could be removed, but again, we want to probably limit it to a manageable size. And honestly, I don't think, as Director McMahon mentioned, I don't think that any piece of the existing bridge, the original bridge, if there's anything left from the 1904, is structurally be feasible to be incorporated into the design. It's almost like 150. We already know that the main reason for the removal of superstructure was because of the concern that were existed due to the significant corrosion of the members, which was left in place in 1986. That's very clear in the report, that the continued deterioration of those members left in place in 1986 finally resulted in removal of the existing bridge. So that's something for you to consider.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Dorothy. So maybe if we could get a follow-up on just what the scope of what we're looking at is, like, what's realistic and what's cost-effective, because I think that for me would really inform what the vision is of this going forward.
So through the chair, if I could, Councillor McGuire, so the scope in terms of what's salvageable and what isn't salvageable?
Yeah, just what size of, what amount of material is realistic to remove the lead and preserve if possible. Because I think I'm having a hard time right now just picturing, depending on what that means, how realistic saving part of the truss is. And if none of it's realistic, then we can focus on a storyboard or a pedestal. And I don't think this bridge, the founding of Smith Falls didn't happen on the bridge. I don't know if it's got a story to it, but there's a lot of stories in town that are told with those pedestals, so I don't know,
Yeah, so I'll have Ramin answer that.
Through Madam Chair, that's very good question. Again, going back to the history, what happened in 1986, we know that a lot of steel members have been replaced. Quite a few of the rivet connections have been replaced with tension bolts. So we know that. So if this is the direction to salvage parts, I guess this is going to be the intention of the committee, to direct the designers and contractors to salvage those parts with a more significant heritage significance. So we need to go to the site, we need to look for those members that exist from the 1904 with those features that we're looking at, like the rivet connections, etc. So maybe a little bit premature for me to comment on that, but I guess the manageable size of salvaging parts from the bridge could be potentially feet by feet from one of those corner connection details of the bridge, and then we will figure it out, how we're going to deal with that later on. But that's probably one of the areas we cannot obviously salvage one panel of the bridge. First of all, it's non-manageable. The other thing is that it's all from 1986. It's not from 1904.
Okay. So through the chair, we may have more information perhaps that we could bring back to the group in April, mid-April at your next meeting. Would that be fair to say, Ramin? Yeah. And trusting at that point, perhaps maybe we'll have some direction from council and we'll know what type of structure we're putting in at that point.
Sorry, and I just want to repeat my request. If there any information exists for the 1868 bridge, please let us know.
Yes, our homework is the research.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. We're good?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much
Okay.
to both of you for coming and explaining
It was
these
our
things.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you again. Our next priority issue is 25 Old Mill Road, the former water treatment plant, and Director Clark will present this item.
Thank you very much. So I'm here today more to, less with an ask of the committee, but to just open a dialogue. As I'm sure you're all aware, Mary, I think, circulated the report that I presented to the committee the whole last evening, and I wanted to address it head on, as I haven't actually done that to this point with the Heritage Committee. So again, while I don't have a clear ask of the committee at this time, I am conscious of the situation that we find ourselves in, and it's a very unfortunate one. And so, I was saying this morning to Carl that I don't like to be painted into a corner, but I think that's where we are. So I also recognize that the heritage designated property is one that for a variety of reasons over the past decade has been left to be vulnerable to vandalism. And we now find ourselves in a situation where it has to come down. So facing the total loss of the structure as we know it, I wanted to come just to open the conversation, but also to sort of share some commitments from our side where we're coming from. And the first is that we have direction from the council, but also internally as staff, to ensure that we fight to retain as much salvage of the masonry elements as possible. So the red brick, the stone, everything that we can keep, we intend to. I intend to work with Carl. I don't know if you know this, Carl, but I intend to work with you to ensure that the Heritage Act is being followed, and we're sympathetic to making sure that we know what needs to be done, and we move forward in an appropriate way as we move to demolish the facility. We also intend to work with Carl and the team to leverage the appropriate elements of various bylaws that we may have to ensure that any new development that may occur is sympathetic to the heritage history of the site. I won't say that I should ask you to consider that the site is a heritage designated. It's not the buildings, it is the whole site. That may be something to consider moving forward that you didn't hear from me. And that will work to leverage any opportunity to incorporate elements of the salvage. So we're going to be working with whomever the developer is. We would like to as far as we can, provide direction to make sure that salvage is incorporated in any facility or any building that is built on that site. And then also, I just want to make sure that the MHC is kept in the loop throughout the process. So I'll be here again as and when possible. So I know it's an unfortunate situation, and I don't think anybody really wanted to be in this situation, but we are here as a result of various actions and inactions over the last decade and a half. And so now we need to move forward. So that's why I'm here. Any comments, questions?
Okay, comments and questions? Lorraine, would you like to? Okay, Carl? Go ahead.
Sorry, just further to Stephanie's comment as well. I just mentioning that I've opened up a dialogue with our ministry representative, just looking to clarify and understand a few of those decision points that we're going to be looking at. So heritage impact assessment, our official plan requires one before authorizing or before proceeding with the demolition of the designated attributes of a designated structure. So just looking at the timing and staging of that, obviously the purpose of that is to recognize, document everything that needs to be documented, so that it's not lost forever. Questions about the designation bylaw. We have a designation bylaw that identifies a number of attributes, the structures on there. Does it need to be amended? Should it be amended? Should we leave it in place to potentially leverage a future project, as well as Stephanie mentioned, some of the staging with respect to potentially zoning approaches to look at, and subject to, of course, council's direction, since the municipality is still the owner of the property, investigating sort of zoning approaches to kind of either a holding zone or some sort of other measure to sort of enshrine council's expectations for what a new structure looks like. So these are all elements and more that we will be looking at in the next little while, and certainly we'll be bringing back to Municipal Heritage Committee for consideration and direction. So I'm not sure what sort of timing that we're looking for some of these decision points, but I think in the past, when we're looking at an alteration or or a demolition, the Municipal Heritage Committee is asked to provide a resolution with an opinion on that, and then potentially conditions that get associated with, that get attached to that, and that's conveyed to council for their consideration. Ultimately, council is the approval authority on a demolition, and council's decision on that regard can come accompanied with recommended conditions that are informed by MHC conversations. So I think this could be another, and subject to your operational timelines and the committee's direction, this can be discussed in more detail once we have a little bit more information, potentially at the April meeting.
Okay. Well, I would like to comment that it's exceedingly important to make arrangements to salvage and retain ownership of the masonry elements. So, yeah, they could be incorporated somehow into what is built there, or they could be, well, there are many ways in which they could be used, but that would be a nice one. So that's what you have to do now, right? You negotiate with the insurance company to make sure that happens.
Agreed. Yes. And that's the direction that I think council has given as well. So council is committed to that. And I think that unfortunately it's the best of a worst case scenario. So we'll be taking that forward to the insurance company and doing the best we can to make sure that we retain our stone.
Chris, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I don't have any of my comments last night. I guess it's
Yes.
it's the part that's frustrating me is that I don't understand how the insurance company can make these kind of ultimatums that is a lose-lose for both them and us, when we know from the Valley report that stabilizing the structure in place is a more cost-effective option. So I guess my faint hope is that there's somebody out there watching that would love to buy that property for $1 and take it off our hands and rehabilitate those structures. But in the since the plant's been empty, we haven't been able to find that group. So,
Lane, did you want to comment? Jenny?
You know, it's sad. It's unfortunate, but I'm not sure at this point what else we can do except try to get as much stone as possible.
Well, it can't stay the way it is, can it?
Well, hopefully next time I'm here, I'll bring a bit more joy. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I am excited about the opportunity to do something really interesting and neat with the salvage, because I do believe that we can get it and it will be ours and we'll retain it. And I think there is a role for the MHC in defining and directing some of that as well. So, I think those ongoing conversations will be really important to make sure that between myself and Carl and the MHC, ensuring that there's a voice and some direction to developers when we engage with them.
If we were to retain the heritage designation on the property itself, irrelevant of the buildings, then perhaps we would be able to make recommendations as to what we would like to see built there. Because it is, even without the buildings, it's a heritage area.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the industrial heritage of Smith Falls began, right on Jason Island.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're going to look into that, Carl, are you?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. If there are no further, Carl has.
Oh, so just looking for my direction as staff for the next meeting, Dorothy, should we be looking at potentially preparing a resolution and some more information and a report on a more formal setting for these things that we talked about for the April meeting?
Yes, sure.
Stephanie, does that work for you timeline wise?
I would hope so. So I can't commit to timelines based on the fact that obviously we're not at the mercy of the insurance company, but we are working with another party that I have no control over. So as and when that needs to change, I'll let Carl know if that is the case. But I'm hoping that we'll have something for the next meeting to be able to present.
Well, once we know what we should do about the designation, then we can
Yes.
do, and we can meet to start wording that.
So perhaps that's our linchpin, sort of that technical piece.
Yes.
But certainly for the committee's comfort anyway, I've been discussing this property and other heritage properties with Stephanie, and she's very passionate. She's very, it's as important to her as it is to me that we recognize and commemorate these properties. So I think we are collectively, as best as we can, given the unfortunate circumstance, I think we are as in good hands as we can with Stephanie and her department and in the work that they have to do right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for coming to give us your report. Okay, next item on the agenda, project updates. The Heritage Symposium is on the agenda. I don't believe we've had a planning committee meeting, or have we? No, we haven't. So I think Lorraine's intention was that we start talking at the committee about what the theme could possibly be for this year's symposium, so that we can then start working on the details.
That was my understanding.
Yes, okay. If we want to focus on heritage conservation districts, is that what we want to do?
That's what we've been talking about.
Yeah. I wonder if
Might be nice to visit people and do some research on the ones that have been successful. Because some haven't been. They've been, met with a lot of, I guess, disdain of people. But some districts seem to really work well and people enjoy it. And even the people in the houses that originally were worried aren't. And those are the kinds of things I think we want to promote if we're going to do it, because we don't want people to be fearful of, what does it mean, or have an understanding that it's not correct.
could we have some focus on the implications of the HCD for the downtown businesses or property owners or both?
And Carl, I
Maybe-
wonder if there's, I'm just trying to remember where we were that we saw the movie. It might have been at one of our PD days, but not PD days, but the days we have for the MHC when we have our get together. There are some places that have been showing how successful that theirs was. And I know there's a region in Ottawa, I'm trying to think of what it's called. But it does that, it has like a video of how successful they've been in that area.
Is it successful in oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just interested in the measurement of success. So I guess the ones that have been identified as ones that failed, and obviously we don't need to name those in public session. We can have sort of a follow up. I'm curious as to whether it's a failure of policy to achieve what they're intending to do, or is it a failure of implementation, or were there not other surrounding pieces? Because this is all an important conversation for us to have. And by successful, are we looking at ones that are successful because they have policies that match the intent, or successful because there's an element of outreach and the proper implementation tools to support property owners in making the right decisions?
Well, I can't remember the name of the speaker we had at the symposium, but she did a really good job of talking about how they implemented theirs and how people were really interested in it. She thought she'd have more pushback, but didn't. Because I think that's going to be what makes it successful or not, whether people want to do it. And what area we're going to look at first. Like we have that already decided. Is that the best? I don't know. We need to talk about that, I guess.
Well, it's focusing on the downtown, but the actual boundaries have not been determined yet.
No.
The area study will do that.
We have appointed a DBA member to sit on our steering committee as well. We certainly want to get the buy-in from our downtown businesses, make sure that they have a seat at the table as this gets discussed, so that they can participate and hopefully right off the bat and have that opportunity to have their feedback and be a partner in this process. At the end of the day, a heritage conservation district is going to be done right, is going to be a benefit to them and drive drive improvements downtown.
Perhaps that person who's on the steering committee could spread the word among other downtown business people that it's a good idea to come to this symposium because, you know, it's, you're going to find out what implications it has for you as a business person in the downtown.
Lorraine, I'll follow up with you on that just so we can see if you have contacts or examples.
Well, I'm trying to remember who the speaker was that was so good at our symposium. Remember, we had her from Perth.
Was it just last year?
Catherine?
Yes, yeah, she was very good, and I had a lot of people come up to me later saying that they felt better when she'd explained how it all happened and what resources there were to help people. Like it was seen as a very positive thing. People weren't. I think the biggest thing that I've heard in neighborhoods like like mine, where you have a lot of older homes, a lot of people are afraid there'll be restrictions they don't want, and so that's been a reason why they haven't wanted to embrace the whole idea. But
I think what Catherine, what I liked about her presentation, what I've seen in other heritage conservation districts, and perhaps is part of that communication piece, is that the notion of different zones or contributing and non-contributing properties. So a property that is either designated heritage or can be designated heritage has different set of requirements than one that's not. So it doesn't look like there's that one size fits all that applies across the entire area, or say a different set of policies that applies to a residential area versus a non-residential area. I think it was Listowel that was looking at sort of different zoning categories. I'm not going to use zone, but different sort of different categories depending on predominant land use there. So I think the neat thing about a heritage conservation district is there's so much flexibility in it and how we want to do it to make it fit our neighborhoods and our unique and distinct criteria. And I think that's a message that as staff I would be really wanting to get out there right off the bat, that this is not something that's going to be coming down on high, that you don't have an opportunity, that you don't have that ability to sort of customize it and make it work for our own downtown.
You're the person to talk about that.
Speaker.
Well, yes, that would probably be quite helpful. I still think it would be really nice though if we weren't just preaching to the converted, namely people from other heritage committees. We need to get more of the public interested, particularly the people who will be affected by it. So I think that's pretty important.
Is that your theme, Dorothy?
Well, I have not. For most of the symposiums, I haven't even been here. I've been traveling, so my experience with them is very limited. Lorraine's the expert on the symposium. But I guess we should set a date for a planning meeting, should we? Want to do that in April, maybe? Early April? Or
Sorry, next meeting?
Oh, so this is symposium planning. It's not our regular MHC meeting.
you're the boss when it comes to the
no,
symposium.
no, I'm not going to be the boss.
Oh, you're not going to be the boss. Oh, who's going to be the boss
I
then?
don't know.
To be determined.
To be determined, okay. Well, I guess perhaps we'll do that by email then. Okay, next item is the round table, and I'm going to start with you, Carl.
Well, unfortunately, I do have a just updating committee on a staffing change. As you may have heard, Mary Remig, our planning clerk, has accepted an attractive position in another municipality, and her last day with the town of Smith Falls will be March 22nd. Certainly, on behalf of the planning team, I'm grateful for what she's done and the talents and the hard work she's put in, and the work the town of Smith Falls, and certainly in a better place with the work and her efforts over the last number of years. We have advertised. We posted for a new planning clerk. That the ad closes on the 22nd as well. So we're looking to recruit to fill that position as soon as possible. That person will I guess resume the recording secretary duties for this committee, and we will. There's elements of work planning, of course, that we'll work on internally to determine who's doing what at the end of the day. But that is the change, and we'll keep you posted once we've made a hire and once that next person is ready to begin.
Well, I'd like to thank Mary on behalf of the committee for all the work she did for us. She certainly organized us. That was good. Sorry to see her go. Over to you, Chris. Do you have anything for a round table?
Yeah, I guess the thing on my mind is that, you know, you have these insurance companies insuring heritage properties, and they have no real intention of actually insuring the property.
Right.
So I'm wondering what kind of, what can we do, or what could we do to warn other municipalities that may have similar insurance policies that might be facing the same risk that we've been going through, just that they could look at their policy and realize that potentially, you know, they may not be covered the way they think they are. Because it really boggles my mind that when the estimates for demolition have come back at, you know, millions of dollars higher than the estimate for stabilization, that the insurance company can just lay down the hammer and force that through. So
I mentioned that to Stephanie this morning. You know, why is it that the policy only included demolition? And she said that they were going to review the other policies that the town holds, you know, just in case there's a problem somewhere else, because you would think it wouldn't just be that, wouldn't you?
well, and to spend more money to demolish versus stabilize, to me, makes no sense. But
And they wouldn't entertain partial demolition either. They refused flatly. It was demolition and complete removal is what the insurance company wants. So
Well,
even struggling to get to keep our stones is a problem.
when on top of that,
It's
there's
also what council voted on. It's what they want.
no, that the insurance company gave the ultimatum of either you self-insure the property or we demolish it. So that's where the council conversation became, you know, we can't self-insure because that would put too much liability on the town, but we can't, you know, I don't know. I don't see how in good faith we can go ahead with the demolition, because on top of what they're forcing us into here, they want to fill they want to backfill the structure with this non-shrinkable, I forget the name of it, backfill for structural stability. So there's the potential that they're going to cover up the site with meters of concrete to hold up the existing walls, because they need to, there's that dam there that's already supported by the structure. So to me, they've served us with this option that's completely untenable. I think it's going to significantly decrease our opportunities to redevelop the site in the future. And they're giving, you know, the only other option they're giving the town is to self-insure the site and take on all the liability for any future works there, which, you know, for a municipality our size, we're not the federal government where we can take that route. So I just think people need to know about, you know, if the insurance company is going to bully the municipality like that into.
They have done.
Yeah, that other MHCs and other municipalities may want to be aware of that, and maybe at least they can learn from us. But I just, to say that you're not going to insure the site going forward if there's a stabilization is not very fair, it seems, but that's the power they've got. So
I have a question for you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So to your question, Chris, if we're going to have a wider conversation about the insurance company's role in, I guess, maintaining our heritage buildings, are we looking for a non-insurance policy, like a route where we don't rely so much on insurance companies, or what?
Sorry, I don't understand. Like,
So you were saying that the insurance company didn't give us many options in maintaining the structure, which is fair.
yeah.
So what do you propose would be for a conversation? Would it just be in terms of the insurance company's role in maintaining other heritage buildings, or just moving away from insurance companies that don't have policies that support what the town wishes to save?
Yeah, I think what people need to be aware of is what is covered under the policy, and then what's the process of determining what'll be funded or what won't be funded if a claim has to be made. Because I think the unknown that I certainly wasn't expecting was that they would pull the card of saying, well, we're not going to insure the property going forward if you stabilize the site, which was really a game changer. It eliminated all the other options. And I think that's the part that other municipalities or other heritage committees might be interested in looking into in their own policies, because I know that this company specifically has a big portfolio of municipal businesses. And maybe if there's enough pushback from enough municipalities, that could push some change at the corporation level. But I don't know. It just seems like to be going through this process and to have the loss that's projected to happen if all of this goes forward as planned. There's got to be something, something has to change from a policy or perspective to prevent the next one. It'll happen again somewhere else, right?
Mhm. Not only would they not insure it, but they said, good luck finding someone who will. Right?
Yeah.
You're not going to find anyone to insure it, so, yeah. Carl?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is really like outside of a jurisdictional question, but would this be something that can be potentially a topic for a Roma conference or some sort of other intermunicipal forum where there's provincial officials listening and sort of that opportunity to drive delegations and conversations at that end?
So maybe, I guess we would need to know what are we allowed to say, what are we allowed to do, or what's our, and I don't know how we find that out, because obviously we're not, the purpose isn't to slander the insurance company or to make the insurance company look bad, but I think there's a very real problem here that people need to be aware of.
I'm not sure what position this insurance company took is any different from what any other insurance company would. So I don't view it as specific to any one company, but perhaps that's a separate conversation we have with CAO Morris to sort of see if there's
Maybe for heritage properties, the policy should be different somehow. Maybe it wasn't insured as a heritage property. I have no idea. Jenny, did you have anything for roundtable?
I don't think so.
Lorraine?
No.
Richard?
No, thanks.
Okay, that's it then. Next meeting, do we want to stick with the first Tuesday? Or do people want to, how convenient is it for you, Chris?
Tuesday, Wednesdays are the best days for me for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, whatever, Thursday, Fridays are still a challenge, so.
we don't want to do it on Friday at 4:30. Not working people wouldn't want to, and I wouldn't care, but. Should we stick with the Tuesday then? Is that okay with everybody? Yeah, all right.
Sure. Yeah.
So then the next meeting is April 2nd.
Well, that, I think that one's gonna have to be moved, because if there's a council meeting, I think April 1st is a holiday, so the council meeting would be pushed to the
Oh,
Tuesday.
So that's
okay.
right.
All right, so we wouldn't meet on April 2nd then, would we?
Just maybe April 3rd, first Wednesday.
Do we want to change it to Wednesday, April 3rd?
Works for me.
Okay,
or the following Tuesday, April 9th, either or.
decision. Carl, you decide.
They both work for me.
Let's do the 3rd.
April 3rd.
Yep.
Okay, and it's a Wednesday then.
4:30.
Yep. Oh, so would someone please move that we adjourn the meeting then? Chris, thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.